our server-side code with configuration files for Mongoose, creating a model, setting up our controller, our server.js, and then we just set up this simple get route so that we can actually get all of the athletes in our database. So now let's actually create the rest of them. So first, let's do the post request, and I'm actually going to do this by first going into our controller and creating that method. So it's going to be module.exports.create request response. So in order to actually get the data on create, we're going to need to get it from the request.body. So I'll do that by just destructuring. We'll assume we're getting the first name, the last name, the sport, and the team from the request.body. Then we'll actually create the athlete by passing in the first name, the last name, the sport, and the team. And note, if we wanted to, we could have just passed in the request.body. Then, so once we create the person or the athlete, we will send back in a JSON response the athlete that was created. If there's an error, then we can response.status 400.json error. All right? So this is the logic we need to actually create. Let's set up that route over here. app.post/API/athletes. And this is going to be the athlete controller.create. Let's see if this route now works. We should go to Postman. Let me create a new localhost 8000/API/athletes. And we'll change this to a post request. Let's go over to body and say first name Jared, last name Goff, sport football, team Los Angeles Rams. So if all is well, I could send this post request off, and then we get the athlete that was just created. So if I come back over here and get all athletes, we should see an instance in our database now. Perfect. After this, let's create this GET request to get a specific athlete. So let's go back to our controller. Module.exports.detailed equals now we are going to actually need to pass in the ID of the athlete in the actual request. So that's going to be within the request.params. All right? And that'll be over here, const ID equals. So then we can find the athlete, find one, where the ID is ID, dot then return the athlete in a JSON response. Or send it back in a JSON response. Otherwise, we have an error, and we'll have to response.status 400.json error. So now, if we're passing in the ID, we're going to go to our routes, app.get/API/athletes/ID athlete controller.detail. All right? So if I come back over here, I can actually change this, or if I pass in this ID to /get, we should only get this one instance. Oh, it looks like I have a typo. See, it says request not defined in module exports detail. So in my controller, it looks like I had a typo. Yep. So if I come back here and once again send that GET request, we get the individual ID or the individual instance based off of that ID. All right. So we're getting there. Now let's create this put request to actually update. So I'm going to say module.exports.update equals request response. We're going to do the same thing because we need the ID that's being passed equals request.params. And then athlete.find one and update, where the ID is ID. Then we're going to athlete response.status 400.json athlete. Otherwise, catch error response. Oh, sorry, this should not be a status 400. This should. All right. So now we have to set up that route where instead of a GET request to the /ID, it'll be a PUT request, and this will point to update. So we come back over here and we change this to a PUT request. We can come over to the body and send in, let's say first name is Jared, last name is Goff, sport is football, and team, let's just say we wanted to change it to the Rams instead of the Los Angeles Rams. If we send this via a PUT request, we realize that we actually have to update something in the model. Not our model, but our controller. So if we come back over to our controller, there's a couple things we'll want to do. One, we actually have to send in the request body. So we could do something similar that we did. Const first name, last name, sport, team equals request.body, and then send that in. So we're actually sending in the data that we want to update, and then we're going to send in another argument, new true, and then we saw this use find and modify. So we need to use find and modify to true. So now once we have that, it should be working or behaving the way we would like. So I come back here and send this put request, and we get this returned. Okay? Last but not least, we want to create the logic for deleting. So once again, we're going to need to create a new method. And once we have that, we can actually create the logic to delete. I'm going to get the ID from the request.params, and then I will say athlete.delete one and send in the ID based off of what was passed in. Then we can send a confirmation, delete confirmation. Response.json delete confirmation. Because what is actually going to be sent back by this method? And if there's an error, all right. So let's say I want to do a delete request to this route instead. If I send and delete it, it says cannot delete. Oh, we have to set up that route, which come back over here. So now let's send it, and there you go. This is what's actually going to be sent back. Deleted, okay. So now if we change this, we do a GET request to API/athletes, we should now have nothing in the database now. So we just went through creating all the routes we need for our API. And it was a lot, but now we can actually combine it with what we created in our client for a full stack MERN application.